Last Sunday we had the psalm in the set readings for the day, Psalm 16, a nice psalm. And today's Sunday psalm in the set readings has moved on 100 psalms, it's 116. It includes rather an unusual and distinctive line. Verse 15 of Psalm 116 reads, "Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints." And that seems perhaps a slightly odd phrase. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. But it comes from a Hebrew word that doesn't have a direct translation into English, but has shades of meaning that could be unpacked a little bit more. There is one translation of the Bible, the Good News Bible, which takes a slightly more free approach to its translation, which renders that phrase, instead of precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints, it reads, painful in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. And that shows another shade of meaning to the original Hebrew word. When God sees the mortality that humanity experiences and that we, one by one as individuals, have to pass through, he is not unmoved by that. He is full of compassion. And if we feel pain, if we feel fear, anxiety, he feels that with us. He is not a God who is far away and impassive and straight-faced when he looks upon our suffering. And at this time in the world, I believe God does take our suffering deeply seriously, and he feels it, and he is not impassive to it. Precious in the sight of the Lord, and indeed painful in the sight of the Lord, is the passing of any man, woman or child, such that he longs and desires to receive what he has created back into, as it were, that old-fashioned word, his bosom, the place in heaven where all is made well. The main reading for today is the quite well-known one from the Easter stories. It's only found in Luke's Gospel. The two travellers on the road to the town called Emmaus, and Jesus walks alongside them in his resurrected form, but it is a while before they realise that this is Jesus come back to life again. It's a wonderful, iconic reading, a dramatic reading, and it bears and brings with it and offers to us a really beautifully simple message. We all go through times when we do not understand what life has thrown at us. We are in confusion, we are in despair, we are in despondency. Things had not gone according to plan. What on earth is going on? I can't make sense of it. And the quiet, still presence of the divine in some form or another that we may well not recognise, and it may be only a very long time afterwards that we realise God's presence had been there. It will draw alongside and lead us to a place of understanding, just like those two on the road to Emmaus. We see them in their journey go from despair, confusion, despondency to incredible elation in a very moving way. Jesus said, when he was thinking about the end of his story and that he would be going away from his disciples and leaving them on earth, he said, "Do not worry, I will send you the Comforter, the Holy Spirit." And in this lovely little story on the road to Emmaus, Jesus, in a sense, demonstrates that by his own person. He brings a lovely comfort to those two disciples who are in despair and confusion. He illustrates the comfort that each of us can have by God's Holy Spirit, which will come to us in various and many different forms, ways and means, sometimes through a kind and timely word spoken, or a kind act offered to us, perhaps something we read, perhaps something we see, an image in nature, or even in the media, on the telly, on the computer, that is meant to be for us at a particular time, can lift our spirits and bring the comfort that we need. And for all of us, in many ways, our life's journey is like the road to Emmaus. And that story that has come down the ages to us illustrates a dynamic that all of us will be able to recognise in our own lives. Do not worry, do not fear. The Comforter will come.
Took me my walking shoes and made for the road. And as we were leaving, the air turned cold. Just the start I knew had a stone in my shoe, and suddenly there was this stranger, a comforting stranger, who's still on the road. We told him our sorrow, the loss of a friend, the cross and the traitor, the bitter hand. Just the start I knew had a stone in my shoe, and suddenly there was this stranger, comforting stranger, who's still on the road. He walks me down my lifelong street and fills my empty soul. Beside the greenest fields he lays me down. He leads me by still water and revives my hungry soul. If you see his lamp approaching, you will know. He's still on the road. Bread on the table, wood on the fire, 3 firelight shadows flickering higher. Just the start I knew had a stone in my shoe, and suddenly there was this stranger, a comforting stranger, who's still on the road. The wine and the firelights, the sun's rich array. This wine is my blood, he said, my body this bread. Like a voice that is caught by the wind, he was gone, and suddenly I knew this stranger, a comforting stranger, who's still on the road. He walks me down my lifelong street and fills my empty soul. Beside the greenest field he lays me down. He leads me by still water and revives my hungry soul. If you see his lamp approaching, you will know. Still on the road, still on the road, still on the road.
It was still the first Easter day. Two of the followers of Jesus were together on a 7-mile trek from the holy city of Jerusalem to a village by the name of Emmaus. Their topic of conversation was, of course, the dramatic events of the past few days. As they debated intently, Jesus himself drew alongside them, as if a fellow traveller on the road. But for some reason they were unable to register who it was. Perhaps they were staring at their own feet as they trod, or maybe Jesus' garment was part-shrouding his face. He asked them, "What are you discussing so earnestly?" He could tell they were held in an air of dejection. One of the friends, Cleopas, replied, "Hey, you've come from Jerusalem, mate. Are you the only person not to be aware of all the shenanigans that have just gone on there?" "Fill me in," he replied simply. "Jesus the Nazarene. He was a flipping prophet, you know. He worked wonders. He spoke God's message. He bridged the gap between God and man. But he was betrayed and handed over to the stupid bigwigs. In their wisdom, it was decided that he needed to be dispatched. Crucifixion. We all thought he was going to lead our country, revolution and spiritual renewal. But it's been 2 days now since it happened. Game over." But here's a weird thing. Some of the women of our group went to the sealed cave where his body had been put first thing this morning. His body was gone. They say they've had a vision of angels, no less. The angels said he's actually alive. Some of the guys went off to have a look for themselves. Indeed, it was empty, the cave. No angels, though. Jesus, the stranger on the road, just shook his head. "You idiots. Come on, guys. Haven't you understood the ancient scriptures, the words of prophecy? The Messiah was always bound to suffer. It's foretold. The glory, the resolution, would come after that." The stranger then brought to their attention particular references from the holy writings, Moses onwards, including the prophets. He helped explain everything in clear terms concerning the law of the promised Messiah. Eventually they came to Emmaus. "I have to go on. I have other people to see," he remarked. "No way, man. Stand here. It'll get dark soon." And they urged him to lodge with them. So they went in together and sat at table for some refreshment. The two friends knew there was something special about this guy, so they invited him to bless their loaf and share it with them. As he passed them a piece each, they both at the same time had the most amazing penny drop moment. They found themselves both completely overwhelmed after all they'd been through, overcome with emotion, the trauma of it all. They each broke down and wept and sobbed into their hands, wiping their tears when they looked up. He wasn't there anymore. He'd moved on, as he said he would. They turned to each other and said, "Why couldn't we see it until now? I was hanging on his every word all the time he was speaking to us." So was I. As he spoke and explained everything, it felt like a burning in my soul. Everything he said made perfect sense. The two were so exhilarated by this amazing twist, this humongous turn of events, this revelation. They never did stop there at Emmaus that night after all. They immediately hurried all the way back to Jerusalem through the night. On arriving back again in the city, they were amazed and thrilled to find the 11 disciples all together celebrating and greeting them with the words, "The Lord is alive. Simon's met with him." And then the two friends related their story: the stranger on the road, the breaking of the bread, the dramatic revelation. In the middle of all this excitement, suddenly a silence fell. They all became aware of a presence in the room. They turned, and there, standing with them, was Jesus. Peace. Peace.